The forest was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that made every sound feel sharper. Leaves rustled underfoot, the distant call of a bird echoed through the trees, and the wind whispered secrets no human could understand. Alara moved carefully, holding the small bundle close to her chest. Inside, the pup whined softly, its tiny body trembling. Its legs didn't work properly, and it was clear the pup would never be strong without help. Alara was human, weak in comparison to the wild creatures of the forest, but she had courage. She had found the pup after a fight between rogue wolves and hunters. Its mother was gone, and no one else would care for it. So, she had taken it upon herself to save him. Every step was dangerous, for she had crossed the boundary into Lycan territory, a place where humans were rarely welcomed. The trees grew taller as she moved deeper, their branches twisting into dark shapes. Shadows seemed to follow her, but she didn't stop. Her heart beat quickly, partly from fear, partly from the urgency to save the pup. "Just a little farther," she whispered, stroking its fur. "We'll be safe soon." But safety in this forest was an illusion. Somewhere ahead, hidden in the darkness, someone was watching. Cradling, the Lycan king, had sensed the disturbance. His senses were sharper than any human could imagine. He could feel the pulse of life, the heartbeat of the human, and the fragile energy of the pup. Something about the sight made him pause. Humans were fragile, yes. But this one, she carried life as if it were sacred, and he had not expected to see that here. Cradling stepped silently between the shadows of the trees, his golden eyes glinting. He was massive, far larger than any ordinary Lycan, with muscles coiled like steel. His presence was both terrifying and commanding. He had ruled these lands for decades, feared by all who dwelled within. But even he was caught off guard by the sight of Alara, small and trembling, holding a Lycan pup that should have been his. The human froze, sensing him before she saw him. Her heart leapt into her throat. She had heard stories of the Lycan king, of his power, his ruthlessness, and now she was alone, with only the fragile pup to protect her. "Stay back!" she cried, her voice shaking, though she tried to make it strong. "I mean no harm." Cradling stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate. "Do you know what you carry?" he asked, his voice deep and resonant, like the sound of rolling thunder. The pup whined and tried to crawl toward him, sensing a familiar energy. Alara clutched it tighter. "It's just a pup," she said. I found him injured. I couldn't leave him alone. Please, I'll give him back. I don't want trouble." But Cradling did not move to attack. Instead, he crouched slightly, lowering himself so he was less threatening. His eyes studied her carefully. There was fear, yes, but also determination. Something about her courage intrigued him. Humans were fragile, but her heart, it shone brighter than most Lycans he had seen in years. "You carry what was lost," he said softly, almost to himself. "And yet, you protect it, as if it were your own." His golden gaze never left hers. "Why?" And Alara blinked. She didn't know how to answer. She had never thought about loyalty to a Lycan pup. She had only wanted to help. Because it's alive," she said finally. "It needs me. I can't just leave it to die." Cradling's expression softened in ways no one had ever seen. He had spent centuries learning to rule with strength and fear. He had not expected to feel this something. A mixture of awe and curiosity stirred within him, something that had long been buried beneath duty and power. "You risk your life for a creature that is not yours," he said. His words were not harsh, but full of weight. "Do you understand what that means?" Alara shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. I only wanted to help. That's all." She tried to back away, but her legs were unsteady. The forest was unfamiliar, and the fear of being discovered by other Lycans added to her tension. Kaylin's gaze fell to the pup. Its small body shivered in her arms, its dark eyes wide and innocent. He had thought he had lost it forever, that fate had been cruel to him. And now, a human had found it. She had not only saved the pup, she had unknowingly changed the course of his life. For a long moment, neither moved. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the wind pausing, the birds quieting, as if nature itself waited for the next move. Finally, Kaylin spoke, his voice firm but not threatening. "You will come with me." Alara's eyes widened. I can't. Please. I only wanted to help the pup. I'm not part of your world." Kaylin's gaze sharpened. "The pup is part of my world, and you have chosen to protect it. That choice cannot be ignored." Alara felt a mix of fear and awe. She did not know what this meant, but she knew she had no power to resist him. Slowly, reluctantly, she followed as he turned and led them deeper into the forest. The trees thickened, the shadows darkened, and the sounds of the outside world faded. As they walked, Kaylin observed her closely. She was not like the humans he had known. She was brave, yet kind, fragile, yet strong in her own way. Her heart beat with a rhythm that resonated with something deep inside him. He realized he did not want to let her go, though he did not yet understand why. Alara's thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and wonder. She had heard stories of the Lycan king's fortress, towering walls of black stone, guarded by Lycans more fearsome than any human could face. She had never imagined she would find herself there, carrying a pup into the heart of the Lycan kingdom. But she could not abandon the pup. She could not. When they reached a clearing, Kaylin paused. Before them stood the fortress, dark and imposing, its towers stretching toward the sky like jagged teeth. The air was heavy with power, and Alara could feel the history of the place, centuries of rulership, conflict, and blood. "This is where you will stay," Kaylin said, his voice echoing slightly in the open space. "You will care for the pup here, within the safety of the walls. But understand this. This is not your world. You must follow my rules." Alara nodded quickly, relief mingling with anxiety. I understand. I just want to help him." Kaylin looked at her, a rare softness in his expression. "Then perhaps we will see if your heart is as strong as your courage." The pup stirred in her arms, letting out a small, contented yip. For the first time since she had found it, Alara felt a spark of hope. Perhaps, in this dark and dangerous place, they could survive together. Perhaps, somehow, they could find light amid the shadows. Kaylin turned back toward the fortress, the weight of his crown heavy on his shoulders. He had not expected a human to enter his life. He had not expected to feel something he had long forgotten, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and yet, he knew the arrival of this human, this Omega who carried his pup, would change everything. As they approached the massive gates, Alara took a deep breath. She did not know what awaited her inside. She did not know what the future held. But she knew one thing: she could not leave the pup behind. Not now, not ever. Kaylin's eyes met hers once more, golden and piercing. "You will stay," he said simply. "And in staying, you will discover a world you never imagined." Alara's heart raced as the gates of the fortress opened before them, revealing shadows, secrets, and a life she had never dreamed of. She stepped forward, clutching the pup tightly, ready to face whatever came next. And Kaylin, the fearsome Lycan king, watched silently from behind, knowing that the fate of his kingdom, and perhaps something far deeper, had shifted the moment a human chose to protect what was his. The gates of the fortress closed behind Alara with a deep, resonant thud that made her heart jump. The air inside was cooler, tinged with scents of stone, fur, and the faint trace of smoke from burning torches. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching and twisting as if alive. Elara clutched the pup closer, feeling its small body press against her chest. It trembled, not just from fear, but from the new world it had been thrust into. Cradling led her through the halls, the heavy silence only broken by the soft padding of his footsteps. The fortress was vast, larger than she had imagined, filled with corridors that twisted like a maze, and rooms that glimmered with faint magical light. Every doorway seemed to whisper stories of power, of battles won and lost, of secrets long buried. "You will stay in the East Wing," Cradling said without looking back. His voice was calm but carried authority, leaving no room for argument. "It is protected. The pup will be safe there." Elara nodded, too awed to speak. The weight of the walls, the darkness, and the sense of history pressed on her chest. She had never imagined being inside a Lycan fortress, let alone carrying one of the king's own bloodline. As he guided her to her temporary room, Cradling's golden eyes flicked to her repeatedly. There was a curiosity in his gaze, something deeper than simple observation. He noticed the way her hands shook as she carried the pup, the way her eyes darted to every shadow, always aware of danger. She was human, but brave, and something about that bravery unsettled him. "This way," he said, stopping before a large wooden door carved with ancient symbols. He pushed it open, revealing a room that was warm and well lit, with soft bedding and a small fireplace. The walls were decorated with tapestries depicting Lycans in battle, hunting, and ruling. But the most striking image was of a king holding a pup, a reminder of legacy and responsibility. "You will stay here," he said, his tone softening slightly. "It is safe. Do not wander beyond these walls without permission." Elara stepped inside, placing the pup gently on the bed. It crawled toward the warmth of the fire, curling into a small ball. She sank into a chair, relief washing over her. For the first time since the forest, she allowed herself to breathe. Cradling lingered at the doorway, watching. "You have courage," he said finally. "Most humans would have dropped the pup and run. But you chose to protect life, even when it was dangerous." Elara looked up, surprised. I didn't think about courage. I couldn't leave him alone. He needed help." He stepped closer, the shadows making his presence even more commanding. "And that is why I do not strike you down," he said. "Because your heart is rare. Humans with hearts like yours do not exist often in my world." Elara felt a shiver run through her. She wanted to ask questions, to understand more about this world she had entered. But fear and awe held her back. Cradling's presence was overwhelming, yet there was a strange safety in it. "You will sleep now," Cradling said. "The pup must rest. You must rest. Tomorrow, I will explain more." He turned to leave, but paused, glancing back. "Do not try to escape. The forest is not kind to humans, and the Lycans will not tolerate trespassers." Elara nodded, too nervous to speak. Cradling disappeared down the corridor, leaving her alone with the pup and the flickering firelight. She watched the small creature sleep, marveling at its resilience. Despite its injuries, it had survived, and perhaps, in some way, it had saved her as well. The night was long, filled with the sounds of the fortress, distant growls, the rustle of fur, the creak of stone walls settling. Elara could not sleep. She sat by the fire, brushing her hand over the pup's soft fur, her mind racing. Who was Cradling? Why had he spared her? And what dangers awaited in this strange, powerful kingdom? As dawn approached, the fortress began to stir. Lycans moved through the halls with quiet precision, their eyes sharp, their senses alert. Elara watched from her window as figures patrolled the outer walls, their forms moving with a grace and strength that reminded her how fragile she truly was. Cradling entered her room as the first light of day touched the fortress walls. "You are awake," he said simply. "Good. We have much to discuss. Elara stood quickly, instinctively holding the pup close. I want to help, she said. I don't know how, but I want to. Kalen studied her for a long moment. You already have, he said. The pup is alive because of you. But this kingdom, this bloodline, it carries a burden, and humans rarely understand the weight of such things. He led her through the halls to a chamber that seemed older than the fortress itself. Ancient symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly with a magical light that pulsed like a heartbeat. At the center of the room was a pedestal, upon which rested a small, intricately carved stone, a symbol of the Lycan bloodline and of the curse that haunted it. The pup you saved is not just any creature, Kalen explained. It is the last of my bloodline. If it dies, so too does hope for my people. There is a curse that has followed my family for generations, and it will not end until a human heart chooses to bind with it willingly. Elara's eyes widened. A curse? Kalen nodded. Yes. A shadow that brings ruin to those I care about. That pup, he is the key to breaking it. And you may be the one to help. Elara shook her head, overwhelmed. I'm just a human. I don't understand your world. I don't know about curses or kingdoms. Kalen's expression softened. Perhaps that is why you can help. You act not out of fear or duty, but out of compassion. That is rare, and it is powerful. For a long moment, they stood in silence. The pup nestled between them on the pedestal. The air was thick with unspoken possibilities, with the tension of what could be, and the uncertainty of the future. Kalen finally spoke, his voice low and serious. There will be others who come for the pup. Rival packs. Enemies of my kingdom. They will not care for its life. Only you and I. Only we can protect it. Elara's hands tightened around the pup. Then, I will protect him, she said. No matter what. Kalen's eyes gleamed, a mixture of approval and something deeper, harder to define. Good, because the trials ahead will test more than your courage. They will test your heart. He stepped back, giving her a long, intense look. Rest now. Tomorrow, you begin your true role in this kingdom. And remember, nothing here is as simple as it seems. Elara watched him leave, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She had crossed into a world she did not understand. A world of shadows, power, and ancient curses. Yet somehow, she felt a spark of purpose. A sense that her presence here mattered. That the pup's life, and perhaps even Kalen's, depended on her. That night, as she sat by the fire, she whispered to the pup, "We will survive this. Together." The small creature pressed its head against her chest, as if understanding her words, as if promising to stay by her side, no matter what dangers lay ahead. Outside, Kalen stood on a balcony high above, watching the forest. The moonlight cast sharp shadows on his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw and the golden gleam of his eyes. He had expected many things in his long life, but he had not expected to feel this pull toward a human, toward compassion, toward hope. For the first time in centuries, he allowed himself a thought he had long suppressed. Perhaps this, human, fragile, fearless, and devoted, could change everything. The morning air in the fortress was cool and sharp, carrying the scent of stone, pine, and distant smoke. Elara had barely slept, her mind filled with unease. The pup, now a little stronger, nestled against her side, but she could feel its tiny body trembling whenever shadows moved in the room. Something about this place made even small noises feel threatening. Kalen appeared at the doorway without warning, as silent as a shadow. His presence made the room feel smaller, his golden eyes piercing as they studied her. "You are awake," he said. "Good. There is much to learn, if you are to stay here safely." Ilara straightened, holding the pup protectively. I'm ready, she said, though her voice betrayed a hint of fear. She didn't know what dangers awaited, but she knew she could not run. Not with the pup depending on her. Cradling nodded. Come, he said. The court must see you. And the pup. They must understand why you are here. The halls of the fortress were alive now. Lycans moved through the corridors with purpose. Their eyes sharp, their senses alert. Some glanced at Ilara with curiosity, others with suspicion. She felt every gaze, every whisper, but Cradling's presence gave her courage. They entered a grand hall, its ceiling high and carved with intricate patterns of ancient battles. Lycans of all shapes and sizes were gathered, their expressions a mixture of wariness and interest. At the center, Cradling's advisors stood, their eyes flicking to him, waiting for a command. This human has saved my bloodline, Cradling announced, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. She found the pup injured, and she chose to protect it. This courage cannot be ignored. Murmurs filled the room. Some Lycans looked skeptical, others impressed. Humans were weak in their eyes, often fearful and selfish. Yet here stood one who risked herself for their future king. Ilara held the pup tightly, unsure where to look. She felt the weight of every eye upon her, the judgment and curiosity mingling into a pressure that threatened to crush her resolve. Cradling stepped forward, placing his hand lightly on the pup's back. He is fragile. Yes, Cradling said, his voice softer now. But he carries the blood of this kingdom, and she has chosen to protect him, not because she is obligated, but because her heart wills it. One of the elder Lycans stepped forward, his gray fur bristling with authority. And what does this mean for our laws, Cradling? He asked. Humans do not belong here. They cannot be trusted. Cradling's golden eyes flashed, and the room grew silent. I decide what is right for this kingdom, he said. This human has proven her worth. The pup survives because of her. That is enough. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. She had expected anger, judgment, perhaps even punishment. Instead, Cradling had chosen her. But the court's tension was clear. Acceptance would not come easily. Very well, the elder said reluctantly. But she must understand the ways of our world, or she will bring danger upon herself and the pup. Cradling nodded. She will learn, and she will survive. That is all that matters. After the court meeting, Cradling led Ilara back to her chamber. The pup crawled onto the bed, curling up into a small, warm ball. Ilara watched it sleep, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. The fortress was full of power and secrets, and she was only beginning to understand the weight of her situation. Cradling did not speak immediately. Instead, he leaned against the doorway, watching her. You are not like other humans, he said finally. You do not fear life, nor do you treat it as fragile. Ilara looked up. I don't know why I'm like this. I only know I could not leave him behind. I could not let him die. 7. Cradling's expression softened, and for the first time, Ilara saw a hint of vulnerability in the king of Lycans. That pup. He carries more than just life. He carries hope. And you, by protecting him, have become part of that hope. Ilara swallowed, unsure how to respond. Her life had been ordinary, filled with small struggles and quiet fears. And now, she had stepped into a world of kings, curses, and power she could barely understand. Yet Cradling's words sparked something inside her, a sense of purpose, a reason to stand strong despite the fear. The day passed slowly. Cradling observed her as she cared for the pup, her hands gentle, her movements careful. He noticed the way she hummed softly to comfort it, the way her eyes never left its tiny form. Each act of kindness, each display of courage, drew him closer to a truth he had tried to hide for centuries, that this human could awaken something in him that no Lycan had ever done. But the fortress was not as safe as it seemed. Shadows moved beyond the walls, and distant whispers carried news of rival packs who sought the pup for themselves. Kalen knew that soon they would arrive, testing the limits of both his power and Alara's courage. As night fell, Kalen returned to Alara's chamber. The pup was asleep, breathing softly. Alara sat by the fire, exhausted, yet unable to rest. She had so many questions, so many fears, yet she felt a strange connection to the fortress and the king who ruled it. Kalen stepped inside quietly. "The night is long," he said, "and dangerous. I will not leave the pup in your care alone." "Not yet." Alara looked up, surprised. He nodded. "You will learn. You will survive. And the pup will be safe. That is my responsibility." "No." They sat together in silence, the only sound the crackling of the fire and the soft breathing of the pup. Alara's thoughts wandered, filled with worry and wonder. She had entered this world without choice. Yet somehow, she felt that fate had placed her here for a reason. Kalen's gaze lingered on her, searching, studying. He was learning more about her than she could know, about her courage, her heart, her resilience, and he was realizing that her presence was changing him, softening the edges of a soul hardened by centuries of rule and battle. "You are different from any human I have known," he said quietly. "And I do not yet understand why I feel this connection." Indifference. Connection. Alara met his gaze, unsure how to respond. There was intensity in his eyes, a depth that made her heart race. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange sense of trust. The kind that comes when someone sees the truth of you, even when you are afraid to see it yourself. The night deepened. Outside, the wind whispered through the fortress, carrying the scent of the forest and the promise of coming danger. Kalen remained by her side, silent, watchful. He did not touch her, did not speak more, yet his presence was enough to calm her, to give her courage. And then a distant sound reached them, a howl, low and dangerous, echoing through the forest. The pup stirred, whimpering softly. Kalen's ears twitched, his body tense. He rose, moving to the window to scan the darkness. "Rival packs," he said, his voice low and warning. "They are close. They have sensed the pup. They will come." Alara's heart pounded. What will we do?" Kalen turned, his eyes fierce. "We will prepare. You will need to trust me. The pup's life depends on both of us." Alara nodded, determination replacing fear. She had no choice but to trust him. She had chosen this path the moment she picked up the injured pup, and she would not falter now. Kalen's gaze softened just slightly, a rare expression for the Lycan king. "Braver than most I have known, but the night will test us, and it will test your heart in ways you cannot yet imagine." Alara clutched the pup, feeling the small rise and fall of its breathing against her chest. "Then we will face it together," she whispered. Kalen nodded. For a long moment, he watched her, and something unspoken passed between them. A bond forming, fragile yet powerful, born of courage, compassion, and necessity. The fortress shivered under the weight of the approaching threat. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rival lichens, sharp and dangerous. The howls had grown louder, more organized, a chorus of menace echoing through the forest. Inside, Alara could feel the tension in the walls, in the air, and in Kalen himself. He moved with controlled urgency, each step deliberate, every sense alert. Alara stood near the pup, her hands shaking slightly. The small creature nestled against her, unaware of the danger looming outside. Kalen's golden eyes met hers. "You must stay close to the pup," he said. "Do not leave its side. If they reach him, Everything will change. Elara swallowed hard. I understand. But will you be able to protect us? Kaelin's gaze softened, just for a moment. I will protect you both. But you must also trust yourself. Courage alone can save lives, even in the darkest of nights. She nodded, gripping the pup tightly. She had come this far. The fortress doors trembled under the first strikes of the rival pack. Heavy claws raked the stone, growls and snarls filling the air. Lycans in the fortress rushed to defend the walls, their movements precise and fierce. Kaelin moved like a shadow, silent and deadly, positioning his warriors strategically to block any intruders. Elara watched, her heart pounding, as Lycans clashed with invaders in the courtyard. Sparks flew where claws met stone, and the air was thick with tension. She realized that this was no ordinary threat. The rival pack had come not just for the pup, but for Kaelin's kingdom. For his bloodline. For the power the pup carried. Kaelin's attention shifted to her. Stay here. Do not come out unless I call for you. Elara nodded. Though fear and worry twisted inside her, she did not move from the pup's side, her eyes scanning every shadow, every corner, ready to react. Minutes felt like hours. The sounds of battle echoed through the walls, but inside the room, Elara and the pup were safe for now. She could feel her courage growing with every passing moment. She was human, yes, but she had a role to play, and she would not fail. Suddenly, the walls shook. A massive figure, taller and stronger than any Lycan she had seen, had broken through one of the outer gates. Elara gasped, pressing the pup closer to her chest. Kaelin appeared at the doorway, as if materializing from the shadows. His presence was commanding, a mixture of power and authority that made even the strongest rival pause. Stay behind me, he said, his voice low and resonant. Elara nodded, feeling both fear and trust in the king who had brought her here. She realized that this moment would define everything, not just her own courage, but the pup's survival, Kaelin's future, and the fate of the kingdom. The battle outside intensified. Kaelin moved like a force of nature, his golden eyes flashing, his claws striking with precision. He was fast, stronger than any human could comprehend. Yet there was a rhythm to his movements, a controlled elegance that made it clear he was a master of both offense and defense. Elara's fear did not disappear, but it was replaced by determination. She watched the pup, ensuring it was safe, but her mind began to think of ways she could help, even as a human. She grabbed a heavy wooden rod nearby, her hands trembling, and positioned herself near the window, ready to defend, ready to act if needed. The rival pack tried to flank Kaelin's warriors, but he anticipated every move, every strike. He was a leader, a king, and the fearsome aura he projected unsettled even the most ruthless of invaders. Minutes passed, and then hours. The fight raged on, each side testing the other's strength and resolve. Elara could see the determination in Kaelin's golden eyes, the unwavering focus, and something else, a quiet admiration for her courage, even from behind the safety of the room. Finally, the massive figure that had broken the gate moved closer to the fortress walls, its eyes locking on the pup. Elara's heart leapt. She could not let it reach him. She shouted, her voice breaking through the battle cries outside. "Stay away!" she cried, waving the rod. "You will not touch him." The figure paused, turning its gaze to her. For a moment, she felt small, fragile, and powerless. But then Kaelin appeared at her side, his presence a shield. He moved with lethal grace, striking the massive intruder with a combination of strength and strategy that left it staggering. Elara watched, her chest tightening with both fear and awe. Kaelin was fierce, unrelenting, and yet precise. He protected the pup, yes, but he also moved with the intention to ensure no unnecessary harm fell upon others. There was a nobility in his fight, a sense of justice and protection that spoke to the depth of his character. The battle reached its climax as the rival pack's leader, a towering Lycan with silver fur and scarred eyes, stepped forward. Its gaze locked on Cradling, challenging him, daring him to fail. Cradling did not hesitate. He met the challenge with a roar that shook the fortress walls. A sound filled with authority, power, and unyielding determination. The two leaders clashed, claws and teeth moving with deadly precision. Sparks of energy, almost magical in nature, seemed to radiate from each strike, illuminating the night with bursts of light. Elara held the pup tightly, feeling its small body tense against hers. She could hear the clash of power, the rhythm of battle. And somewhere deep inside, she realized that courage was not just Cradling's. It was hers, too. She had chosen to protect life, and in doing so, she had become part of this world of power, shadow, and honor. Minutes later, the rival leader faltered, overpowered by Cradling's strength and strategy. The remaining Lycans, seeing their leader defeated, retreated into the forest, howls fading as they vanished into the night. The fortress was silent again, save for the echoes of battle and the soft breathing of the pup. Cradling turned to Elara, his golden eyes meeting hers. There was something unspoken there, admiration, relief, and a deep recognition of her courage. "You were brave," he said softly. "Braver than I expected from a human." Elara looked up, unsure how to respond. I just wanted to protect him," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Cradling nodded, stepping closer. "And that is why you survived this night. That is why you belong here. With the pup and with me. Courage like yours does not go unnoticed in this kingdom." For a long moment, they stood together, the pup nestled safely between them, the aftermath of battle lingering in the air. The fortress had survived. But more importantly, the pup was safe. And Elara had proven, not just to Cradling, but to herself, that even a human could hold her own in a world filled with Lycans and shadows. As the night deepened, Cradling led her back to her room. The pup, exhausted but unharmed, curled against her side. Elara sat by the fire, feeling both relief and exhaustion. She had survived the first test, but she knew that the world she had entered was far from simple. Cradling lingered in the doorway, watching her. "This was only the beginning," he said. "Others will come. The pup's life is a beacon. It draws attention, both good and bad. You must remain vigilant." Elara nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "I will," she said firmly. "I won't fail him. I won't fail you." Cradling's gaze softened again, a rare warmth breaking through his commanding presence. "I believe you," he said simply. "And that belief is as important as any weapon or strategy. Courage and heart are stronger than you realize." He turned and left, leaving her in the room with the pup. Elara sighed, brushing the small creature's fur gently. She realized that she had changed in ways she could not yet understand. She had stepped into a world of shadows and power, of kings and curses. And yet she had found her place not by strength alone, but by courage, compassion, and heart. Dawn broke over the fortress, casting pale light across the walls and the forest beyond. The air was still, but the tension from the previous night lingered like a shadow. Elara stood at the window, the pup cradled in her arms, watching the forest cautiously. She could still hear faint rustles in the trees, signs that danger was never far. But for the first time since arriving at the fortress, she felt a sense of control, a feeling born from courage, trust, and the knowledge that she was not alone. Cradling entered silently, as always, his golden eyes scanning the horizon. "They will come again," he said, his voice low. "The rival pack is cunning. They will test us, but we are ready." Elara nodded, though a flicker of fear remained. We survived last night. We can survive again. Kalen studied her, a mix of admiration and something deeper in his gaze. You have grown stronger, he said. Your courage is not just in protecting the pup, but in standing by him despite fear. She felt warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of pride and relief. She had entered a world she did not understand, full of power and danger. Yet she had carved a place for herself, not through strength alone, but through heart. The morning passed with preparations. Lycans moved through the fortress, sharpening claws, reinforcing walls, and creating defensive formations. Kalen trained Elara quietly, teaching her ways to move, observe, and react. Though she was human, she learned quickly, her instincts guided by courage and her connection to the pup. By midday, a scout returned with news. The rival pack was advancing again. Stronger, more organized, and relentless. They sought not just the pup, but the power he carried, the promise of breaking the ancient curse that had haunted Kalen's bloodline. Kalen gathered his warriors and spoke to them with authority that shook the fortress walls. Tonight, we end this, he said. The pup will not be taken. Our bloodline, our kingdom, and our hope will remain intact. Fight with honor. Protect what is ours. Elara stood beside him, holding the pup. She could feel the weight of the moment, the importance of every heartbeat, every choice. She had never imagined being part of such a world, yet she knew she belonged here now. She would fight, she would survive, and she would protect life, no matter the cost. As night fell, the rival pack arrived. Shadows moved through the forest, growls low and threatening, eyes glinting with hunger and intent. The fortress walls trembled under the first assault, the sound of claws scraping stone echoing through the night. Kalen moved like a force of nature, leading his warriors with precision, striking with strength and strategy that left the invaders reeling. Elara stayed close to the pup, yet she watched, learning, ready to act. Every instinct she had developed in the fortress now came into play. The battle raged fiercely, and the rival pack's leader stepped forward, silver fur gleaming in the moonlight, eyes locked on Kalen. The two leaders clashed, sparks flying with every strike, the force of their power shaking the ground beneath them. Elara felt her heart race, her breath caught between fear and determination. She could see the danger, the raw power of the Lycans, and she knew that her courage would be tested as never before. Suddenly, the pup stirred, whimpering softly. Elara instinctively held it closer, her voice gentle. Stay calm. We will protect you. I promise. Kalen glanced at her, his expression unreadable, yet there was a hint of approval in his eyes. Her bond with the pup was unshakable, and that bond gave strength to both the human and the Lycan king. The rival leader surged forward, aiming to strike Kalen, but Elara acted. She grabbed a small rock, hurling it with precision that surprised even herself. It struck the leader off balance, giving Kalen the opening he needed. With a roar that shook the forest, Kalen struck decisively, his power and strategy overwhelming the rival. The invaders faltered, retreating as their leader fell back. The sound of howls faded into the distance, leaving the fortress victorious but wary. Elara exhaled, relief washing over her. The pup nuzzled against her, safe and unharmed. Kalen approached, his expression softer now, pride and gratitude mixing in his golden eyes. You were brave, he said simply. Courage and heart saved the pup tonight, as much as strength did. Elara smiled, exhausted but happy. I just wanted to protect him, she said, and I wanted to help you. End quote. Kalen's gaze softened further. And that is why you belong here. Not because of power or blood, but because of heart. That is stronger than any Lycan, stronger than any curse. For a long moment, they stood together. The pup, safe between them. the fortress quiet after the storm. Outside, the forest held its breath, and inside, a bond had deepened not just between Cradling and Alara, but between human courage and Lycan legacy. In the days that followed, the fortress healed. Walls were repaired, wounds tended, and the air gradually returned to calm. Alara's courage and compassion had won the respect of the Lycans. They no longer regarded her as fragile. They saw strength, resilience, and heart. Cradling spent time with her, teaching her more about the Lycan world, its laws, its history, its magic, and its curses. And as they spent time together, something more began to form a quiet connection. Subtle, yet undeniable, built on trust, admiration, and shared experiences. Alara realized that she no longer feared the fortress or the Lycans. She had become part of this world, her courage intertwining with the strength of those around her. And Cradling, who had ruled for centuries with authority and caution, found himself drawn to her in ways he had never experienced. Her heart, her bravery, and her compassion had begun to soften the edges of a life hardened by duty and power. One evening, Cradling brought Alara to the highest balcony of the fortress. The moonlight bathed the walls in silver, the forest below quiet and still. The pup slept peacefully at their feet. "You have changed this kingdom," Cradling said quietly. "Not by blood or strength, but by courage and heart. And you have changed me." Alara looked at him, her heart fluttering. I just wanted to protect life. I never imagined that I could change anything." Cradling's golden eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. "You have. And in doing so, you have shown me that even a king must sometimes learn from those who are smaller, weaker, and unexpected. You are not just part of this kingdom. You are part of me. Now." Alara's hands trembled slightly as she looked at him, the weight of his words sinking in. She had crossed worlds, faced danger, and protected life, and in doing so, had found a bond deeper than she had ever imagined. The pup stirred, nuzzling her hand, and she smiled, brushing its fur gently. "We survived," she whispered. "Together." Cradling placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, a gesture of protection and connection. "Yes, together," he agreed. For the first time, Alara felt the full depth of her journey from a frightened human in a dangerous forest to a courageous protector, a bridge between worlds, and a companion to a king. The darkness of the past, the danger, and the curses had been met with courage, compassion, and heart. Outside, the forest seemed quieter, the danger held at bay by the strength and unity within the fortress. But inside, a new kind of strength had emerged, a bond forged in courage and tested by fire, a promise of protection, trust, and a shared future. Cradling and Alara watched the moon rise higher. The pup nestled safely between them. No words were needed. Their hearts spoke through silence, through shared glances, and through the understanding that they were no longer alone. The fortress stood strong, the bloodline safe, and the bond between human and Lycan unbreakable. The rival packs would come again, as all threats did. But tonight, there was victory. There was trust. And there was hope. And in the quiet, under the silver light of the moon, Alara realized that she had not only found courage within herself, but had also discovered a place where she belonged, a world where her heart and bravery mattered, a world where love, trust, and loyalty could thrive even in darkness.